Greetings, brothers and sisters. Here's JoJo. He's looking for something here. It's not there. This has happened before. I did a video during the election process. It's not there. It's not here. Jill's bumping elbows with people behind there. Dude's clapping. JoJo's lost something. What is it, JoJo? JoJo, what is that you've lost? Where is it, JoJo? There we go. Just don't do that, Jill. We got to get back. There we go. So wait, Joseph's already looked there. It's not there. He's saying something. Guys saying we got to get out of here, JoJo. It's not in the book. I know it's not in the book. You already looked there. But it's there. What is it? These guys are getting in on it. Where is it, JoJo? We got it. Ah, it's my mask. He put it in his pocket, I think. Wait, you pull it out of his pocket? Let's watch that again. Here he goes. Oh, he's reaching into his pocket. Oh, it's my mask in my pocket. It's going to be clean. It's just been sitting in my pocket with all this COVID juice on. Now he's got his mask. Let's get that mask on, JoJo. It's totally clean. It's over your eyes. There you go. Hey, point at this guy. Point at this guy. Everybody goes home happy. This guy's waving off. Yes, JoJo found his mask. Way to go, JoJo. I got a lot more stuff to get to. Let's go with this next.
India, they're suffering at
What do you
this
say to
moment.
the folks in
Well,
India?
you make
Look, I'm sorry. This is the last question I'll take, and I'm really going to be in trouble.
With who, JoJo? Who are you going to be in trouble with? You're the president. Who is going to get you in trouble for answering more questions? They don't let me talk to you guys and answer questions. I've had my limit. I'm on a time schedule, you know. I'm only able to play so many minutes a game today. JoJo's in trouble. So I was eating lunch and I saw this woman, Dr. Leanna Wen, who is very strict about COVID stuff. She was, to me, over the top. And she wrote an op-ed piece for the Washington Post, and she was talking on CNN about this. There's no video about it. But she thinks Biden has gone too far on the masking. She was criticizing his speech when everyone was masked up and social distance, and she said it was sending the wrong message. So this is a doctor who's really into the doctor stuff, right? You know, this is like Fauci saying you've gone too far. Every time I've seen her on TV, you know, she's not alternative at all, right? And so she thinks JoJo's even gone too far with masks. And I said this before earlier today. This is from the CDC. Individuals who had close contact within 6 feet for a total of 15 minutes or more, these are the people who are considered high risk to get COVID. This is how you get COVID, according to the CDC, that you're within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more of a person who has COVID. And they go on to say this is irrespective of whether the person with COVID or the contact was wearing a mask or whether the contact was wearing respiratory personal protective equipment, PPE. So it doesn't matter what you're wearing in terms of masks. What really matters is that you're within 6 feet and for more than 15 minutes of a person who has COVID. And so that's the official medical story, the CDC's official story. That's how they say somebody gets COVID. So the masks have become more of a superstitious thing. You know, people want something to do, right? People want something that they can say, all right, I'm working hard to prevent COVID. It's like putting on a seatbelt, except seatbelts work, right? And so people want something that they can do to prevent it from happening. And so masks give them a sense of security. I mean, there are people who are wearing masks, like COVID could go away and they'll still be wearing masks. There'll be some people who wear masks for the rest of their lives. And for JoJo, and I talked about this earlier, that he has this, he touches his face now. He has this like thing he does where he touches his face because he's so used to wearing a mask. It's become habitual. People are like, masks are normal. They feel uncomfortable and like naked without them. They've been a part of clothing, right? I mean, you're going to have, people having face coverings. It'll be some ritualistic thing people do long after they've forgotten about COVID. So I got a bunch more stuff to get to here. So this was trending. Billie Eilish was trending on YouTube Trends. They play some song. This is one of those, previews that they do, right? Prequel, I don't know what it is. Trailer. It's a trailer to an upcoming song or album. I'm happier than ever. And so look at that, like just so depressed, and look at this. She's singing this song with, and just like, what is this, right? I mean, think about how depressing it is. And her young fans, many of them who are depressed and suicidal and all this stuff they're pushing out there, right? This is the generation where young people are basking in being depressed, because there's people like this, celebrities, that say, it's normal to feel melancholy and depressed, and actually you should be doing it. It's being encouraged, and I've talked about this before, self-abuse and things like this. And so this is what kids today are growing up with. This is how bad the Oscars suck. Anthony Hopkins, who was nominated, of course he's, in foreign countries in Wales. I mean, he's on a different time zone, right? It's a lot earlier. But he didn't bother to stay up and watch it. And the next day they're like, hey, you won. And people are pissed because they want Chadwick Boseman to win. And so he said this.
Good morning. Here I am in my homeland in Wales. And at 83 years of age, I did not expect to get this award. I really didn't.
So much so he went to sleep and didn't think anything of it until there was some controversy. He had to address it.
Very grateful to the Academy and thank you. And I want to pay tribute to Chadwick Boseman, who's taken from us far too early.
And so he had to basically apologize for not winning an Oscar, not caring, and him being really old or whatever. And the Academy Awards gave it to him for some reason. He's won before. And everyone expected Chadwick Boseman to win because, he died and everything. And that's how bad the Oscars suck, right? This is, the guy who won didn't even care about winning, and everyone's upset because somebody who's, deceased didn't win, which he wouldn't care about it either because, And so this is where the Oscars are heading towards.
It was a stunning revelation. Thousands of dollars taken from people's bank accounts by a mortgage servicing agency, leaving people overdrawn and panicked.
It's terrible. Tonight, consumer investigator Steve Sprague getting answers as to just what happened.
So this one mortgage company decided just to take as many automatic payments as it wanted, right? People who are on auto pay, instead of taking, 1 month's worth of a mortgage payment. Some cases, this one guy, he took like 10 months, right after draining people's bank accounts.
Suddenly, your accounts show zero balance. Homeowners across the country were shocked to see thousands of dollars pulled from their accounts, and I was one of them, waking up Monday morning to find that Mr. Cooper Nation Star Mortgage had pulled a half dozen $1,500 payments from my account.
Kazowie! Well, they said they've given the money back, but this shows you they can do this anytime, right? That they took all of this, you could see the balance going down, right? Each time they're taking these money, like it's going down up here, it's going down, it's going down, it's going down to $318. And so they just wiped out the dude's bank account because that's happened before. There was banks seizing homes to homes that were owned outright by people. They didn't have a mortgage with the bank. They never had a mortgage with the bank. And the banks were, remember that foreclosure crap that happened, where banks just started to seize property that they didn't even that they didn't own, and they were like cops showing up in like full military gear and evicting people of homes that they owned, right? Or they had a mortgage with another bank. I mean, this happened in that whole mortgage crisis and the foreclosure crisis that happened afterwards. And, beware, because this will be coming around the corner. So just when you forgot how annoying Anne Heche was, she came back on TikTok to remind everybody.
Hi, I'm Anne Heche. I'm going to be reviewing my most iconic fashion looks today. Total hit, presented with P. Diddy. Excuse me, yes, red is gorgeous and Prada.
Wow, this is like so sad. This is like fond memories, like when she went to this, whatever it was, some gala, Oscar, whatever she was dressed up for, wearing an eraser on her head, or a thimble, And this is where she's going down memory lane, right? Pretty excited about her fashion that she wore. Like, just how sad, right?
Quite sure it was Greg Gorman and sequin and silver, and I say it's a ring. Ding.
Ding. That was a ding. A clear ding. As in bat, right?
Hello, excuse me, Versace? Yes. And it was Oscars? Yes. And it was with Gregory doing my makeup. Ding.
Yeah, what's happened? Like brain damage? What's going on with her? She's having trouble articulating her words, and the big bombshell thing's coming up, but all of it's pretty disturbing.
Why do I look like a hippie? It's because Ella didn't want me to dress sexy. Bye. No.
Bye, no. Ellen, thumbs down. Ellen didn't let her dress sexy. 0 out of 10. She's rating her past performances, and she's saying Ellen didn't let her dress the way she wanted to. But she lets you go out, right? I don't know what you're complaining about, right? That she was controlling what you wear. Let you, right? She didn't let you. Well, what did she let you do, right? In what way was she not letting you do things? Sounds like she's saying she was in an abusive relationship.
I know. Okay, so the theme was Dangerous Liaison. So my hair was explosive. And by the way, it rained and it was frizzy. And by the way, it didn't work.
2 out of 10. And then Dancing with the Stars. Apparently she was on Dancing with the Stars.
What better time to have you go inside out, upside down, and backwards for gay rights and human rights? I am the flag. Dancing with the Stars.
Giving herself a 10 out of 10. Again, how sad, right? Like, this is when you look back on your life and you're like, well, I got to wear overpriced clothes at the Oscars. These are my fondest memories. This is my accomplishments. So Anne Heche reminding everybody how annoying she is. So I covered this, I don't know, last week sometime, about how Tucker Carlson inappropriately told his viewers to go confront people wearing masks and people making their kids wear masks. And I talked about how it wouldn't work and it would just escalate things and breed conflict, and the powers that be aren't on your side, right, for the most part. And so you would, it's just not something that's good advice. It's not somebody who knows what's going on would say. But, what's even worse than that is Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel exposes Karen Tucker Carlson's biggest hypocrisy yet. And Stephen Colbert takes dirtiest swipe yet at maskhole Tucker Carlson. And they're worse, right? These guys are worse, and I'll explain why that is. What Tucker Carlson said was stupid and, inappropriate, but what these guys are going to say is much worse because they are complete shills, and Tucker Carlson is only a partial shill.
When you see children wearing masks as they play, should be no different from your response to seeing someone beat a kid in Walmart. Call the police immediately.
See, first of all, that's a laugh track. People aren't going to laugh to that. They're trying to make him seem ridiculous, but that's manipulative. It's manipulating your audience. It's disrespecting the people watching your show by manipulating them with fake laughter. I've talked about that before. In this case, it's about something that's, kind of serious.
Contact Child Protective Services. Keep calling until someone arrives. What you're looking at is abuse. It's child abuse, and you are morally obligated to attempt to prevent it.
Tucker is, of course, very sensitive to the needs of children since he is one himself.
That's not a professional comedian joke. That was fake laughter that you did. You have fake laughter behind you. And that's, there's going to be psychological effects on children from wearing masks and seeing people wear masks. It just is, right? Not being able to see people's faces, not being able to learn how to read other people's, whatever it is, emotional states by looking at their faces and things. I mean, there's whole charts out there. There's all these things out there, right, for kids, right? Happy, sad, to understand how to read other people's emotions and moods and things, how to understand how to be empathetic and things like this, right? This is something that kids are supposed to learn, and when you're wearing masks, you don't learn these things. I mean, it's important. This is a big part of, kids who are having difficulty with empathy and just understanding that other people have needs and feelings and things like this. And so, reading body language and all these things. And so when you cover up people's faces, you don't know what they're feeling, right? Especially the, mouth area. So this is some truth to this, right? And so, instead of saying, yeah, masks do have consequences, but they're worth it, they make it sound like masks are completely, benign on all levels, right? Masks are actually a good thing, and we should have been wearing them all along. They just sold it ridiculously without verbalizing the other side of it. They're dirty. They can get bacteria in them. They, especially for kids. Kids don't really need to wear them because they're at such low risk to get COVID. And again, I've talked about this before. The CDC says over and over again that it's 6 feet in 15 minutes, regardless of whether you're wearing a mask or not. So, there are consequences for this to introduce a mass social behavior that's not natural.
Respond to that. That's precisely how you should respond when they tell you that your kids have to wear masks on the soccer field.
Right. Spoken like someone who got punched in the face on the soccer field every day of 6th grade. What kind of an...
So you think it's funny when a kid gets bullied on the side of a soccer field? For a guy who's tried to reinvent himself as a liberal and a champion of women's rights after that horrible misogynistic show, The Man Show, he just said, oh, yeah, you got bullied your whole life. Like, he didn't get bullied, right? Like Jimmy Kimmel's a small, unathletic dude with a big mouth, and he didn't get bullied, but he's trying to mock Tucker Carlson for getting bullied. And, that's not appropriate liberal humor there, pal.
Are zealots and neurotics. They're the aggressors. It's our job to brush them back and restore the society we were born in.
Tucker, I'm going to point out literally the first person you met when you were born was wearing a mask.
Yeah, so it didn't have to be that. I delivered a baby, right? My youngest son, right? We had a home birth, and, and I wasn't wearing a mask. So it's not necessary to wear a mask, right? The doctors do that. That's part of medical protocol. But that's your point of view here, this clown and other clown. Right?
But old Mother Tucker has a way to restore human contact and intimacy to public life. Harass other people's kids.
So again, right, this is, the difference between these guys and Tucker Carlson. And Tucker Carlson often, he's got that weird laugh, and sometimes he champions right-wing causes that are BS, and he promotes disinformation, and, he's a shill to whatever degree. But he's not a complete shill. He actually believes in what he's saying. Maybe these guys have gotten Stockholm syndrome, right, or whatever it is. And, people start believing their own lies if they sell it long enough. So maybe these people might believe in what they're doing, but it doesn't come from some, organic place. Tucker has a little bit, or maybe half, I don't know what it is, of his rhetoric comes from, he touches on things that are truthful, talking truth to power. Some of it's just right-wing crap. But some of it is, on the lines of truthers, and he's more right about masks than they are. I mean, his solution was wrong. He was telling people, his audience, to go out and confront other people, and that, we know that isn't going to end well. I covered that extensively in another video. I pointed out that was going to fail and just make things worse. And let it happen, right? You're betting on one thing. I mean, this is a time where people are making a choice about what they think is best for them. And the people that choose something else, I had a comment, somebody said they didn't feel comfortable doing the Heartfulness meditation because somebody they loved or somebody in their life was, made a choice about, medical treatment that they didn't agree with and they felt hurt. People are going to make these choices. You got to let them make the choices. It's a just let it happen moment. You're betting on your research and your heart and your whatever it is, right? You got to, accept it. You got to let it go. You got to accept that people are going to make choices. Sometimes your loved ones, sometimes your significant other. You have people who are, opposed on COVID treatment. Some people are going with what the, mainstream story is, and some people are doing alternative things, and you just have to accept it, right? You have to find some way of just, I mean, it is kind of a deal breaker in lots of situations. I'm sure people might even get divorced over things like that, right? And that you're pleading with your loved ones who aren't listening to you when you see disaster. So this is, where we are as a country. And these clowns, I mean, they're not comedians anymore. They're like 90% shill and 10% failed comedians and 100% ghouls, right? Speaking of ghouls, one of my viewers sent me this. Royal Mint unveils giant $10,000 pound gold coin, 10,000 pound in terms of money, the monetary note of England. But the Queen, during this crisis, has decided to mint her own coin with these animals, right? And it is meticulously polished. I mean, you can see, the Queen's beasts. There's a dragon there, and a lion, and a couple of lions. I don't know, what's that, a peacock? These are the beasts of the Queen, a unicorn, and a bull, and a goat. Of course, there's a goat with big horns, Baphomet-like goat. And this is a meticulously polished gold coin that she minted. It says it's worth 10,000 pounds on the back of it. Been sold, I bet, for like millions of dollars, $1 million or something. She auctioned it off. And so the denomination is 10,000 pounds. It weighs 10 kilograms, which is around 25 pounds, so it's heavy. I looked it up, and it sold for an undisclosed amount that's at least six figures, so in the hundreds of thousands. And so during this time where the royal family's being accused of racism, the world is in crisis, economic crisis, and of course the COVID things, the royal family is under scrutiny. She decides to make a giant gold coin and sell it for, whatever she sold it to, for some fan of the Queen, some rich fan of the Queen or whatever, right? This is what the royal family's doing. And finally, Hunter Biden continues to invest in equity firm linked to China's central bank. And Hunter Biden's just getting a free pass now because of his, daddy. I mean, he is a crackhead after all. I almost feel sorry for Hunter. He's got a crack problem and other drug-related problems and skank problems and things. First son, Hunter Biden, continues to own a large stake in Chinese private equity firm in defiance of President Joe Biden's pledge that his family would divest in foreign business interests. So, I made the first part of the video today. The stuff that started with JoJo and ended with Heche. I had to make dinner, so I couldn't complete the rest of that, but there's some stuff with Jimmy Kimmels and Stephen Colbert that I'll end up adding tomorrow. And so that's how sometimes these videos work. I do it in pieces, and my voice will sound different at different times of the day. People wonder why that is, your voice doesn't sound the same all day. And there's just things that when you make videos, and all these little things and details. When you do something every day for your job, you learn a lot more about it. That's why I always ban people and tell them to go away, right? When they try to give me advice and, try to tell me how to run something that they, know virtually nothing about, just from their limited perspective as a consumer, as a viewer. But anyways, my wife and I finished watching the TV show, The 12 Monkeys, and it turned out to be a wonderful show that had a heartfelt ending. There was just, it ended up being a heart show. There's lots of movies and TV shows that can appeal to your lower emotions that exist in your gut, and things that can make you angry, things that can make you fearful, horror movies, whatever it is, right? Lustful. It's very easy to get to your lower emotions, your lower energy centers, and that's in your gut. But it's harder to appeal to people's minds, make something that's smart. So much of things on TV is just stupid, and it's for stupid people. You can see the patterns. I mean, I'm watching things, and you can see everything developing long before. I mean, there's movies I'm like, I already know what the ending is, right? I've watched 5 minutes of it. And I mean, there's movies you can just watch a trailer and you already know how it's going to end. they might try to put some different spin on it, but it's just the same movie you've seen 20 different times, right? Or 100 different times. The same storyline, the same characters, or whatever it is. But in terms of appealing to your mind, it's hard to make something that's intelligent. And it's even harder to make something that touches your heart. Like, very seldom you find a movie that reaches the level, the subtle vibrational level, that there's actually love in it, right? There's love in the movie. Like, we were watching that movie District 9. I watched it with my kids, and then I watched it with my wife a year or two later. And it's a story, it's like an alien story, and they have these crustaceans, right? These, what do they call them? Prawns, right? Shrimp, it's what they call them in Australia or South Africa or whatever it is. And, it's about apartheid in one level. These aliens are shrimp, big giant shrimp. And it's, got some funny things in there. It's very violent to some extent. But it turns out that it's actually a love story. I'm like, oh, wow, that was a love story, right? You really don't see it coming until the end. And that was a private, somebody made like a short video and put it up on YouTube or something in South Africa, a filmmaker, and they gave him the money to make it into a full-length movie. So it's something, an outsider outside of Hollywood. Because, most people that are in Hollywood, their hearts are closed and, they're dead inside. So they don't really have the ability to make something that has heart energy or love energy in it, godly energy in it. So that's why it's a rarity when you see a TV show or a movie that has heart energy. And that's why even in terms of the Heartfulness meditation, the transmission that's given in this, recent gathering that completed, the energy that comes from the source that flows through the heart of the master or the trainers of the system, and then is given to the heart of the person sitting in meditation, is so unique and like a precious thing that hasn't really ever existed on planet Earth before, because there's always heart energy in it. Like, every time I've gone to a gathering, there's been like, I've gone through really difficult things, either in terms of travel or illness or, personal, emotional things and drama and conflict. I mean, really unpleasant things. But the gathering always ends well, always delivers on a heart level. Like, just, this recent one, this 122nd Babaji birthday anniversary that just ended tonight. So my wife and I watched the show, the final couple of episodes of the 12 Monkeys, and it just, was, moving. And then we had the final sitting, which was very, subtle and loving, and just just an energy booster. I mean, for me, it's always been something that's like a recharger, like a re-enthusiast, like I have more enthusiasm, right? I have, sort of a fresh perspective, right? I come back from a gathering with a fresh attitude towards life. And the thing about movies and TV shows, oftentimes there is a great first episode. There's a great first introduction to the movie where they put a lot of creativity, especially for TV shows, maybe in the first season even, where they suck you in. Like, they have this, compelling character development and storylines and things that grab you. But the ending doesn't deliver, right? The introduction is good. You find this with people. You'll find people in your life that are great at the beginning of things. They're great at hooking people in. They're great at, relationships. And right off the bat, there's a lot of energy, enthusiasm. But as time goes on, they can't sustain it, right? It's an illusion or something along those lines. You see this time and time again. Most things don't end well. America is one of them, right? Most relationships, most, lives, most businesses, most activities, most anything that ends usually ends poorly with a lot of unresolved crap, right? Which I'll come back to. But this 12 Monkeys show, I had watched a little bit of one of the episodes, and these, it's a sci-fi channel show, so it's not like a high budget show, and they're not going to get like, top of the end actresses and actors and things like this, right? They're not going to have the kind of budget for special effects like, a network show would have, or a full-length movie or a series of movies would have. And so my wife and I started to watch it. I think it was recommended by somebody. I don't know where I, saw it. But it had this thing about a plague that wiped out 7/8 of humanity, right? 7 billion people. And that was something that was taking place in like 2015 or something. And so it was interesting because it involved time travel, and I always loved the movie The 12 Monkeys. It's a well done movie. And so my wife and I, usually watch TV after dinner, and it's a lot of things. Like we both usually fall asleep. It's something my parents, when I was a kid, was in high school. We lived in a raised ranch, and I'd come upstairs, and my mom and dad would be watching the news after dinner, and they'd both be snoring away. My mom's head was usually back, and her mouth was like opened up towards the sky, right? And my dad was sitting there snoozing away, right? And so I always thought, wow, it sucks to get old, but my wife and I are watching TV, and we often like take naps, and my wife falls asleep, I'll start watching basketball or whatever, and sometimes she wakes up and I immediately get tired afterwards, and it's funny. But there were several times that I gave away TVs or sold TVs or didn't have a TV and wasn't watching anything on TV, I mean, for years, like 10 years at a time. And, there's chunks of my remembering what happened in terms of pop culture and even in the news, because I just wasn't, really plugged in, especially right before the internet. But even after the internet, there was, a period of time where my family and I didn't have a TV for like 5 years. But now it's different because, we watch it, and I get ideas for videos, and I usually see something in terms of, something I'll put in a video, and there's just a whole different level of consciousness that I'm seeing it as. And we were watching this show, The 12 Monkeys, and the first season was pretty good. It was all right. And then the second season started, there was a character that became kind of really annoying, and then there was some, But then it just started getting better and better. The character development got better. And it was one of those few shows that gets better and better as it goes along. That the, complex storylines, especially something involving time travel, and you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit in any kind of TV show or movie. You can always find plot holes and flaws. I mean, that's always going to be there. But in terms of them, weaving this together, because there's lots of times that TV shows have an idea of where they're going to go, and they start off well the first couple episodes or first season, but then it goes on, they really didn't think their way through it ahead of time, and they can't bring the conclusion that they originally wanted to deliver. But this show was actually, the fourth season was by far the best, and it was like the biggest season, and they delivered a very, wonderful ending, and it was just good on a lot of levels. And I was, thinking about this in terms of the Heartfulness meditation, like I was saying, that the difference between like partying and doing the Heartfulness meditation is you usually go through the cleaning, almost always go through the cleaning before a gathering. Whereas when you drink and party and indulge, whenever you're, behaving in a sort of a materialistic, hedonistic way, the pleasure is in the beginning and the hangover is in the end. But in the Heartfulness system, the hangover is before the good feeling, because the good feeling is about the heart. It's deeper than, gut level pleasure, gut level, whatever it is, right? Hedonistic pleasure, which always leaves some sort of, negative feeling afterwards, right? Overindulging. As Master Charji always said when he came to America, I mean, I heard him say this 5 times in different talks, that there's 2 sides of the coin. If you're going to have pleasure, you're going to have pain. If you're going to, anytime you have pleasure, you're also going to have pain. And so in the Heartfulness system, the pleasure is of a different, higher, refined order. And the pain is cleaning away things that need to be removed so you can absorb as much of the transmission and the spiritual love that's there, right? Whereas when you're partying, you go and indulge, and then you have to pay a price later on. And so this show was, to me, along the same lines of the Heartfulness system, in the sense that it got better as it went on, right? It was something that ended the way it should end, right? Very seldom do you see a TV show where all the loose ends are tied up and, all these things. All the contingencies, all the various things are brought to a conclusion. And the thing about time travel, whenever you see a show or a movie on time travel, and I always like these shows. I like, we just watched something that was a little bit more graphic. I forget what it's called, but it was really funny. Had some good bits in it. I can't remember the name of it. It's not really important. Of course, there's the Terminator movies and just even the last, the last Avengers movie had time travel. There's all these movies and TV shows and books. Of course, H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. And the problem with time travel is the characters usually engage in time travel because they want to undo something or redo something that was a mistake, that they think it was a mistake, that somehow some, mistake in the plan, God's plan, can be redone by traveling back into the past and changing what happened. And that's supposed to, create a better future. And for this show, the 12 Monkeys, it was all about personal loss, right? It was people who had lost a loved one. Usually it was a child of, one of the main characters, and they wanted to go back and change things so the child would survive. And, for me, there was a message in the middle, like maybe the third season, I don't know when we were watching. Shortly, it was like 3 or 4 days after I found out about my daughter's suicide, and I was just, still in a state of shock. And there was this message. My wife and I looked at each other because a couple of things happened. And I covered it in a long video that I'm, not comfortable releasing yet. I'm going to release it maybe in some, future date. But it was a very substantial message. And I had to use some of the show to illustrate it. And the people who own the 12 Monkeys thing copyrighted it, right? Copyrighted the section I used, but then they released it after I, filed whatever I filed in YouTube. And then I was like, you know what, I just don't feel ready to release it, so it's a whole thing. But it was, there was a lot of levels that this was timed just right, including watching it the night right before the final sitting of this Babaji gathering. And so this idea of people wanting to go back in time and change a tragedy, I mean, that's, so many people think about that and wish they could go back to some period in their life and have a do-over. But what people don't understand is you have do-overs your whole life, and then in future lives, you're getting the same circumstances over and over again, right? Similar jobs, similar relationships, similar marriages, similar, interpersonal dynamics with other people. Don't you see that the same things keep on repeating themselves in your life itself and then in a future life? Because if you don't solve something, your soul is given, your ego is given a set of tasks, who you are as a person, your personality configuration, your subtle bodies that create your physical body and your personality and your characteristics and your soul and your samskaras. Your samskaras can also be looked at as a set of tasks. And so you have a task to complete. And if you fail, once, then you're given a second try and maybe so many tries. And then maybe you don't have any energy left, right? Maybe even though you still are alive, you failed a couple of times and now you're old and you don't have as much prana, you don't have as much spiritual energy, creative energy, and you're kind of beat down and bankrupt inside. And so you don't have enough energy to face that problem again. And so you sort of just go dead inside or whatever it is. And then you die and you come back and you have to do it again, right? The problems that these tasks that you're given to complete, if you don't complete them, you have to redo them. You have to either redo them in your life right now, or you have to redo them in a future life. And so it's important to do them right and move on to something else. And people say, well, I don't believe in past life or future lives. But that, I've explained this before. When you die, if you think you're going to heaven or hell, that's a future life, right? That's a life of your soul, and your soul is eternal. The idea of a soul came from ancient India in the Vedic culture, over 200,000 years ago, and every other religion has plagiarized that idea. And they didn't plagiarize it in a pure way where they gave you all the information about your soul. By and large, people 2,000 years ago in Jesus' time, Jesus himself, understood there were past lives. Jesus talked about being other people, being, somebody else in a past life. He talked about his past lives, and that was edited out of the Bible. And why would they do that? Why would they edit Jesus' story and some of his teachings and work? Because of control. The way the Christian religion controls Christians is to promise you heaven if you comply, if you give them money, if you pledge your allegiance, your devotion and service to the organization. They say, all right, we promise you're going to go to this better place when you die. And so that's one way they control you, with what's called temptation. Babaji wrote about this in terms of religions. He said religions, he didn't specify, but he said religions have two tools to control you. One is temptation. The other one is fear, right? Fear and temptation. Fear of hell, and the temptation, the promise of heaven. And so most people are scared of going to hell. If you leave the religion, you're going to hell. Imagine if you had that power over the people in your life. If you quit this job, you're going to hell, like you're a boss. Or, if you leave me, to a girlfriend or boyfriend or something, if you leave me, you're going to hell, right? If you don't do what I tell you to do, you're going to hell, right? So, that's a very powerful thing that they've convinced so many people of, that this religion has the power. People say, well, what about John 3:16? Well, there's nowhere in the Bible where Jesus said, if you don't adhere to this religion, because he didn't have a religion. He didn't talk about a religion. He didn't say he wanted to form a religion. He didn't do any of those things. He didn't want that. That wasn't a part of his teaching. That came after. That was other people who glommed onto his teachings and used it for personal gain. And I hope you can see the distinction here, especially if you're, somebody who has never really thought about this before, because it affected all of us that grew up in some form of Christianity. Because which religion, which sect of the religion, is it Catholicism? Is that the one that's going to bring you to heaven? Or is it being a Baptist or a Church of the Brethren or a Lutheran or whatever it is, right? Which one? Which one delivers? Do they all deliver? Or just the one that's, the one that you're in, right? And which Bible is the right one? I went to this thing called Bible Hub. I've gone on there a number of times because people have asked me about certain quotes and things like this. And I found that there was at least 10 major different Bibles, and they, what they say, the way they word it and the way the phraseology is quite different. And the teachings have a very different meaning. So which is the right one? Or all of them wrong, because none of them are in the original language, which is Aramaic, right? And some of the Bible, and the original Old Testament was in Hebrew, I believe. And so you have two languages that was translated into Latin and multiple other languages, and then into English. And so there was things lost in translation. So if you understand all of this, that past lives are a real thing, that Jesus knew it because they were real, right? And this promise of heaven and threat of hell are a way to control you. Because what Jesus said was the kingdom of heaven is within. That inside of you, and this was a more significant teaching, one of his most profound teachings, that the kingdom of heaven is within. That you can find heaven within yourself. And then during the Heartfulness gathering, they put up some quotes from Babaji and from Master Charji and Daji, the current master of the system. They were, speaking, and they, had some of these quotes from them. And Daji was talking about how heaven isn't a place. If you don't experience heaven here on earth, then you're not going to experience it after you die. Like heaven is a condition, a spiritual condition. And if you find heaven on earth and not some, pleasure-centered, some brothel or something, some vacation paradise, not like that, not a place, but you find heaven within, right? It's a spiritual condition. It's a realm of energy, right? A spiritual realm that your soul experiences. And you can experience that inside yourself. You can experience heaven, and that's what the transmission is in the Heartfulness system. And so when you experience heaven within, and then your soul, when your physical body falls off, your soul goes to that condition because you've reached a certain level in terms of your proximity to God, right? There's these various levels, and some of them are very pleasurable and very enjoyable, but they're not the goal. Like, you don't get stuck in those. Sometimes people reach one of these spiritual levels of ecstasy and they just never leave because it's so pleasurable. But they get stuck in it, and then they become twisted, just like anything else, right? You have to move forward, and you have to let things end, right? You have to let things resolve themselves, even if they're going to end poorly. There's these books called In His Footsteps, which was published by Master Charji about his spiritual experiences. In the Heartfulness system, you're supposed to keep a journal or diary. And he was given a sitting by Babaji, who was preparing him to be the next master. And there was this one sitting I can remember in particular, but there was a number of them where he described it as being, blissful and heavenly. But this one, he was in this field of blue, like this deep blue color, and he just felt incredible. Like, he closed his eyes, went into meditation, felt a transmission from Babaji, and he was taken to this place. And he came out, he's like, what was that, right? And I'm not doing it justice because I can't even remember all the details about it, but it was this, profound experience. And Babaji said that was eternity. You experienced eternity. And he said, but that's not the goal. Ignore it and move on, right? You had the experience of eternity, but now, move forward. Because there's a spiritual goal, which is returning to the source, which is at the center, and it is at the center of the person and also at the center of the purpose of the Heartfulness system. But I'm saying this because we all have our tasks. We all have our whatever our soul and our samskaras and our purpose here is on planet Earth. Things that we have to achieve, things that we have to do the right way. We have to be successful at. And we're given multiple opportunities, and we'll be given multiple more until we get those things right. And we'll experience the same things over and over again until we are successful in completing those tasks, which will not only clean out some of the negative things that we have inside us, but elevate us to a higher level of spiritual condition. And humanity as a whole, like, we have our individual tasks, and then we have our collective tasks, right? And like I said before, things usually don't end well because people don't know how to end them, right? They don't know how to bring things to a reasonable conclusion because they have a fear of them ending, like relationships, right? People, don't want to experience the pain of a relationship ending, so they'll go like scorched earth and turn it into a very negative anger fest, hate fest with the person that they're breaking up with, or, the relationship's ending, and, they turn on each other instead of just feeling the pain of the relationship ending and all the things you might be scared of, abandonment or being alone, or, just all of it, right? Just feeling that instead of, making it go in an ugly direction so you don't feel the sadness and the pain of loss and all these things. And also with relationships, it's, it's the death of a dream because you thought this person was going to be there forever, right? I mean, going back to this idea of, in terms of these religions, not just Christianity, but all of them promising you something, right? 70 virgins, 70 virgins and a mule, right? All these things that are promised in various religions. But think about the amount of promises that you've experienced where people have broken a promise, or you've broken a promise, or you've broken a vow, right? Think about all the people who get married and, they think they're going to spend the rest of their life with the other person, and in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, that doesn't work out, right? The vow is broken. People pledge things, people, pledge their loyalty, and so those things mean nothing, right? On this plane of existence. They don't mean anything here. So how are you going to carry that pledge, when you don't have a body anymore, right? And so when these religions, these organizations promise you heaven, they can't deliver. They're not even spiritual. They're, materialistic organizations. They don't have the ability to promise you something, right? They can't condemn you to hell or bring you to heaven. They, don't have the power. These are things that are between you and God. They're internal to you, right? People can help you with it. A spiritual master, someone of a higher caliber, a saint, can help you achieve these things, but you have to work at it. It's your goal, right? Somebody can't die for your sins. You have to atone for your mistakes, right? You have to, you can't expect somebody else to pay the price for whatever you've done wrong, right? You have to, you have to earn these things. If you don't earn it, I mean, spirituality more than anything else, but when you don't earn something, it doesn't feel good. Like, you have to earn it. And spirituality and your relationship with God and your soul, you have to earn these things. You have to do the work. There's no escaping those things. And so when things end, you have to learn to just to feel the pain of it, right? Just accept it. This is going to suck, and it feels bad, and, not lash out. I mean, that was something I always used to do, right? Just lash out, blame other people when things didn't go the way I wanted, whatever it was. And I always regretted it, felt bad afterwards. And so at some point you have to, grow into a sense of maturity and just accept that you're going to experience pain and shitty things in this plane of existence, because everybody does, right? We all do. But if you experience them with gratitude, and I talk about this all the time, it's completely different. It's a masterful experience where you do it the right way, because the outer experience is going to happen, but what you do inside yourself when you're going through it is whether it's going to be successful, whether you're going to get a passing grade or not, right? And so what's about to happen is we're entering in a phase on planet Earth where there's going to be a massive die-off, right? There's going to be less people here each year, right? There's going to be less and less people. And I just, showed this, that we've had population growth for the past 500 years, which is extraordinary for any species. And so even with loss, we've just been growing, right? Growing in terms of the cities we have, in terms of, the technology we have. I mean, even if you lose a loved one, there's more people being born every day, right? There's 142 million people being born each year and about 54 million dying, something like that, right? So it's double the amount of creative energy and growth. But that's going to reverse itself. You're going to have less babies coming in and more people dying off. And to such an extent, there's going to be a lot of loss. Like, everyone's going to lose something. You're going to lose loved ones. You're going to lose, privileges. You're going to lose lifestyle. Things are going to be getting worse. Instead of having a new iPhone, a new computer, a new TV, a new car, a new whatever it is, right? New things to watch, new experiences to have, like better rides, and when you go to an amusement park, and, faster travel, whatever it is, right? Better virtual reality, whatever is going on. Instead of gaining more things, having newer and more things growing around you, it's going to be a reduction time where everyone's going to be losing things, and there'll be a sense of loss, like general sense of loss, that will permeate the planet. So many people feeling regretful, feeling, cheated, feeling like, they were promised a lifestyle and privileges they no longer can have, or whatever it is. And it's going to be this overwhelming feeling that's going to be palpable when you just, you look at people's faces and you can just feel all the negativity, like the confusion and things that are going on with them. And then the other piece to this is when people die, there's going to be less spots to incarnate into. So where's your soul going to go, right? If it isn't going to come back here, and you're not ready to go to the next level in terms of spirituality, when you're still bound to planet Earth, like there's a phase called liberation, where you've reached a certain level of spiritual development, where you've freed up your bondage to planet Earth. You've graduated, right? Everything is like a school, right? You're graduating from planet Earth because you've reached a certain level. And very few human beings have reached that level. And it's a small thing, right? In the Heartfulness meditation, liberation is considered cheap compared to merging with God, returning to the source. But very few people have reached liberation. There was this talk where Master Charji was saying how Babaji told him that there was a saint back in the Vedic era, people would live for 20,000 years, 50,000 years in some cases. People lived for a very long time. And there was a saint who went into meditation for a whole yuga that was like 15 or 20 years, right? A whole phase of human, time period, and still didn't attain liberation, right? I mean, somebody who was that devoted and meditated on God for 15,000 years, and there was people were, more developed in the previous, in the Vedic times, a whole different group of people. The people that live now, this version of humanity is a different version than from previous eras and generations. Like those people left, they either went extinct or left the planet. And the people that are here now, all of us were, we've been genetically modified some way. I mean, that stuff will come to light in some, future date. But it's something where, there's flaws in our genome, which you can see, lots of physical issues, anomalies, physical diseases and things. Like there's diseases people get that you can't reproduce, right? Where you're born with some, birth defect where you can't reproduce. And so genetically that shouldn't be passed on to other people, but it is, right? It still exists in the human genome, a lot of flaws and things, sloppy work that was done. But anyways, you're going to have this situation where all these people are going to die off and there's going to be less spots for people to come back to Earth and complete their tasks. And so they're going to have to, wait it out, right? Especially lower developed souls that, went to the dark side and all these things are not going to be allowed back into the human experience. So this is something where, you're fighting for a spot, right? I mean, there's, there's going to be limited places and people who fail and, fail epically that just won't be able to come back here. So where are you going to go, right? Where are you going to go if not here? Probably not a better place, right? If you failed, if you, got kicked out of school here, you get expelled from this planetary school, where do you think you're going to go, right? I mean, usually when you get expelled from school, you don't go to a better school, right? When you flunk out of school, usually, don't go to a better place. When you flunk out of society, you end up in some sort of prison or something, some sort of military school or, some lockdown facility or whatever it is, right? And so failing out of something never leads to good results unless you're in some sort of sucky school, right? That's, oppressive and then, you're liberated from that experience, but that's completely different than what's happening here on planet Earth. And so this is a time, it's an epic time for people to reach up to higher levels and embrace the challenges of their existence because, it's going to be a time of loss and everyone should face it. We're all going to experience some loss coming up and we all have to learn to cope with it, right? Because if you don't, you'll just get left behind. Just some little cheery message tonight. You get left behind, MNFers. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalaughs and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.